Greetings, Lumen students, and happy Halloween. It is your Thursday video, and as this will be the last video before Halloween, I felt like I should dress in my costume. I wanted to honor one of the greatest teachers, I think, of literature, and that is Professor Albus Dumbledore of the Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. And as we begin this video, I would like to speak some important words to each of us, and they are nitwit, blubber, oddment, tweak. Thank you. You may recognize those as the first words uttered at the beginning of their banquet for Harry's year one at Hogwarts. Of course, Albus Dumbledore said many other wise things that we will focus on. But I first have for you in our video today a quiz about our spelling words. And this is a movie quiz, so I have pictures of 5 different movies. And I would like you to tell me which spelling words are illustrated in these 5 pictures. Okay, so number from 1 to 5 on a scratch piece of paper. I've got the words behind me. I'll try to stay out of the way. And I want you to write down which word is illustrated by each of these pictures. There we go. Clue number 1. Clue number 2. Clue number 3. Clue number 4. Clue number 5. Let's work our way backwards with the answers, students, and see how well you did. So this is a Phineas and Ferb episode, maybe the hardest one, where they're trying to solve and untie a Gordian knot. So the word I was looking for was knot, K-N-O-T. And I would love, students, if you're interested in doing a little bit of research, for you to learn what a Gordian knot is. And there's some history based in that goes all the way back to Alexander the Great. And so you will have fun learning what a Gordian knot is. Number 4 is versus, but it's spelled V-E-R-S-U-S in Monsters vs. Aliens. V-E-R-S-U-S. There's number 3 from Spirit, the Stallion of the Cimarron. And the word I was looking for here was rein, R-E-I-N. This wild stallion's being captured with a rein. Well, these horses are using reins, and Spirit is not used to having reins on. Of course, this was an easy one from Lilo and Stitch, lay, L-E-I. And then finally, from The Lion King, I'm going to be the main event, but he meant M-A-N-E, as he makes a pretend mane of leaves. How did you do? Awesome. Hey, students, I want to share with you now a couple of really inspiring Albus Dumbledore quotes. Before I do a little bit more reading in history and in our 7 wonders of the world. So let's take a look at these. Here's our first one. Do not pity the dead, Harry. Pity the living and those, and above all, those who live without love. It is the unknown we fear when we look upon death and darkness. Nothing more. and it does not do to dwell on dreams and forget to live. He's a very wise man, and we will add some more quotes as we continue on. I want to tell you another interesting story about Julius Caesar. This one has to do with crossing the Rubicon. So Julius has been gaining more and more power among the people of Rome, and the senators are worried that he's going to come home from winning all these battles, and that the people will want him to be king. He has been off fighting with the Roman army in Britain and all these places, and he sends back word all his great victories. Wow. The senators get together and decide that they're going to send a message to Julius Caesar. And say, do not come back to Rome or we will have you arrested. And then they announce to all the people that Julius Caesar has committed treason and he's an enemy of the people and an enemy of Rome. When Caesar gets this message, he is like, I am not staying away. You can't keep me out of there. I'm too popular. The people will not believe that I'm a traitor. Everyone loves me. Remember, of course, Julius Caesar is going to act like that. And so he immediately starts to march home. He gets to the Rubicon River. And the Rubicon was the border of Roman land. Caesar knew that if he crossed over the Rubicon, he would be in land controlled by the Senate. The Senate would try to arrest him, and he would have to fight. His army would end up fighting against other Romans. If he crossed over the Rubicon, he would start a civil war. Should he do it? He stood staring at the river for a really long time. Even yet, he said to the captain of his army, we could turn back. But once we cross this bridge, we will have to settle it with our swords. Finally, Caesar drew his sword and stepped onto the bridge. My enemies have forced me to do this, he said. We will march into Rome. Let the die be cast. He crossed the Rubicon, and the senators and his army followed him. Back in Rome, the senators were trying to raise an army of their own, but they weren't having a lot of luck because nobody wanted to fight against Julius Caesar's soldiers. His soldiers had been spent years fighting. They were tough, they were strong, they were ready to fight. And when Caesar and his army came in sight of Rome, all of the senator's soldiers ran away. Before Caesar could enter the city, the senators had fled as well. Caesar marched triumphantly into Rome. No one dared to arrest him. And now the Senate had to admit that Caesar was too powerful to drive away. He wasn't king yet, but he was the strongest man in Rome. Today, we still use this expression. If you have an important decision to make, people will say, you're about to cross the Rubicon River. Crossing the Rubicon means you're about to do something major, so dramatic that you can't turn back. It is kind of a turning point in itself. So interesting, right? How does Julius Caesar compare with Albus Dumbledore? I don't know that Albus wanted power as much as Julius did. Let's read a few more of Dumbledore quotes. It is our choices that show what we truly are, far more than our abilities. And students, I have a sorting hat here. And you may say to yourself, I want to be a Gryffindor, or I want to be a Slytherin, or make me a Ravenclaw. Or perhaps even some of you are like, Hufflepuff. Hufflepuff doesn't get any respect. I want to be a Hufflepuff. Well, you think that the sorting hat makes those choices for you, but students, it's what you really want inside. You decide your destiny. You decide who you're going to be. And I want you to remember that. It matters not what someone is born, but what they grow to be. You have the choice. It is your choice, students, and I love that message. Okay, we'll end up with a few more Dumbledore quotes, but I'm dying to get to our story about the 7 wonders of Sassafras Springs. Before I do that, though, I have to show you some pictures of Applehead dolls. Brace yourselves. Oh yeah, it gets better. Check out some of these awesome creatures. Creepy, right? There's a little doll. This could be Miss Zeldy. How about this ones? These ones do look like shrunken heads. And you can make something like this yourself, students, for Halloween if you want to. You just peel the outside of an apple and then carve away for a nose, carve some eye openings, a mouth, and then you let it dry out. You can even put it in the oven on low temperatures for a while to dry it out faster. And then you can put clothes on it, or add some hair, anything at all that you want. Here's some awesome little critters. Do you think those are the ugliest sin dolls that Eben is talking about? Let's read a little bit about this wonder, the first wonder of Sassafras Springs. I see you don't fully appreciate Miss Zeldy, said Mrs. Pritchard. Still, I promise you, this doll is a wonder, formed by the hand of man, with a spirit that goes beyond anything man can understand. She cradled the doll and sat down. Only a doll, you may be thinking, Eben. An old woman's doll at that. However, once you hear Miss Zeldy's story, even a young man like you will sit up and take notice. I was already taking notice, especially when Mrs. Pritchard held Zeldy on her knee like some hideous child. I half expected this doll to start talking. I felt those hollowed-out eyes staring right through me, and the hairs on the back of my neck tingled. Mrs. Pritchard pointed to the hard green sofa opposite her. Sit down now, Eben McAllister, and pay attention to what I have to say, she ordered me. So I sat, because when folks in Sassafras Springs start to tell a story, it's likely to take a while. Mrs. Pritchard's story. Miss Zeldy's message. I grew up over on Lead Ridge. My papa was the preacher there. You didn't know I was a preacher's daughter, did you? Papa was an educated man. He'd been to seminary. He read books, even though we didn't have 2 pennies to rub together, ministering to the poor miners. But we thought we were as rich as kings, the way Mama sewed and cooked, and Papa was handy too, carving up tops and other toys for us. Most years at Christmas, we were lucky enough to get an orange, a peppermint, and a new pair of socks or a handkerchief embroidered with Mama's fine stitching. It was more than most. Not like you young people today who get store-bought gifts. In spite of Mama's good care, I was a sickly child, and I was small for my age. One year when I was about 6, I guess, a cough took hold of me and wouldn't let go. Mama tried everything. Red alderbark tea, hot water with onion juice. Once Mama even made Papa get me a little whiskey to drink in hot water. It would have been a scandal if the congregation had found out, but they were desperate to cure me. How people get to liking the taste of spirits, I will never know. It was horrible, and I certainly hope you will resist that temptation even. Anyway, Mama would rub my chest with a mixture of kerosene, turpentine, camphor, and lard. Still, my cough got stronger, and my body got weaker. My folks didn't think I would last through the winter. Until I took sick, I slept upstairs with my sisters, where it was cold as the devil's heart. So Mama fixed me a bed downstairs in front of the stove, trying to keep me warm, and Papa carried me wherever I had to go. Around Thanksgiving, the coughing got worse. And at Thanksgiving dinner, after Pa said grace, Mama choked up and got tears in her eyes. I don't feel as thankful as I might, she said. Be thankful she's still here, Libby, Pa told her. And I knew he was talking about me. A while later, they got the doctor to come. He had the sad look of a man who's given up. When he took Mama and Papa aside to talk, he shook his head like there was nothing he could do. The fever's taken hold. If only she'd been stronger to start with, I heard him say, but she's in the Lord's hands now. Sure enough, I had a fever that left me shaking one minute and burning up the next. In between, I dreamed that I was floating in the air right up near the rafters of the room. On Christmas Eve, like in a dream, I heard Papa tell Mama to pray with him that I'd make it to Christmas morning. It was a rough night, and Mama never left my side a minute. And the next day when I woke up, the first thing I laid eyes on was my stocking. And peeking up over the top was my very own baby doll, my precious Miss Zeldy. There was a tiny chair and a bed for her, carved by Papa. Mama had made her all kinds of hats and aprons and such. Pretty things, even a coat with a real fur collar. I thought Miss Zeldy was the most beautiful doll in the world. Little did I know what power she held. I cuddled her and I kissed her. Papa teased me by calling me Little Mama. I liked that, and I thought of Miss Zeldy as my own baby, as much as any of my 6 children were later on, and that is the gospel truth. That night at bedtime, I heard Mama tell Papa she made it through the night. And through the day, that doll has worked a miracle. Of course, he reminded her that only the Lord can work a miracle. Mama said she didn't care who made the miracle, she only cared that I was alive. I rocked Miss Zeldy and tucked her in her bed next to mine. And I left a thimble full of water next to her tiny bed, like my Mama left a cup of water by my bed. Later, when my fever rose and I felt that floating feeling again, I reached over and held on to Miss Zeldy. No matter how much I loved my doll, I still kept getting weaker and weaker. When Mama put a piece of flannel cloth on my chest with the kerosene and turpentine remedy on it, I made her put one on Miss Zeldy too. And every night I put out her thimble of water and I kissed her goodnight. Sometime between Christmas and the New Year, the doctor came to call, and he still had that sad look. Her heart is weak, I heard him tell Mama and Papa. Keep praying, but you'd best prepare for the worst. It was odd, because even though I could hear them talking, I felt like I was floating on a cloud above them. What they said didn't seem to have anything to do with me. Floating felt nice. I was drifting further and further away, like I was gliding up to heaven. I'd always liked to watch the barn swallows soar and swoop across the sky. That's what I was doing, soaring and swooping, flying further and further away from Earth. And then I heard a voice. Although I'd never heard it before, I knew right away who that voice belonged to. Little Mama, I'm thirsty. I want something to drink, the voice called. I didn't like being interrupted. I wanted to float forever, but that funny voice kept calling me. Wake up, little Mama. I need a drink. Give me a drink now, little Mama, please. She was thirsty, you see. Sorry. And I had to be a good mother like my own Mama was. I had to stop floating and come back down to earth to get Miss Zeldy a drink. I was as certain of that then as I am now. And when I opened my eyes, her thimble of water had tipped over, and it was bone dry. I sat straight up in bed, like I'd never been sick, and from that minute on, I got better and better. The doctor said I was just out of my head until the fever broke, but Papa called it a miracle and preached about it in church. When I tried to tell them that I'd heard Miss Zeldy speak, they smiled and said it was just the sickness. Why won't anyone believe it was my doll? I moaned in frustration. I believe you, Mama said. She kissed me goodnight, and she kissed Zeldy too. I've never forgotten that she believed that this humble doll came to life for a few sweet moments to save my life. Yes, young man, to this day I wouldn't have ever awakened in the glory of this world again if Miss Zeldy hadn't called for that water. I wouldn't have married Hank Pritchard, raised 6 healthy children, and taught Bible stories to young folks like you. That doll's a wonder of the world, maybe not of this world, but of the next one. You write that down even, Miss Callister. When I tell you this is a wonder, you better listen. Just as miracles were worked with loaves and fishes, this miracle was worked through a doll. If anybody says it's not true, you come and talk to me. There was no arguing with First Pritchard when she took that tone. I picked up my tablet and began to write. Even though her story was peculiar by jiggers, it amazed me. It might even get me to Colorado. Even so, I knew that I could never sit in Sunday school again without seeing that shriveled up face and those hollow eyes. I decided I better not think about it for a while. Instead, I flew back down the hill with Sal at my heels, as if there was no such thing as gravity to hold me to earth. What do you think, students? Was Miss Seldy that miracle? Pretty amazing. Pretty cool. All right, here are our final quotes. It is a curious thing, but perhaps those who are best suited to power are those who have never sought it, those who have leadership thrust upon them and take up the mantle because they must, and find to their own surprise that they wear it well. Kind of interesting to think about that in light of Julius Caesar, isn't it? Of course it is happening inside your head, Harry, but why on earth should that mean that it is not real? Differences of habit and language are nothing at all if our aims are identical and our hearts are open. Dark times lie ahead of us, and there will be a time when we must choose between what is easy and what is right. Happiness can be found in even the darkest of times if one only remembers to turn on the light. Albus Dumbledore. I think that's a great one to end on, students, which is perfect because it's the 10th and final quote from this page on the internet. I am famous for all the wise things that I have said. And I will end again with another wise spell. Expecto Patronum. Okay. Maybe you have a Patronus that you can call up to help you, like magic. I know that you do have parents who are concerned about you and teachers who care about you as well. So you can have everything you need to succeed, students. Thank you. And have a wonderful Halloween.